Okay.
Thank you for coming on to the show. Today we're going to be talking about young Catholics, and we've been doing that for the past couple weeks, but specifically we're going to be talking about young Catholics in high school. And I thought that'd be very prevalent or relevant to have a high schooler on. So if you would, could you just introduce yourself, tell me where do you go to school as well, and any other sort of fun fact.
My name's Declan Chmielewski. I'm a senior at Loyola College Prep, which is about 3 miles that way. I am a military child, so I wasn't born and raised in Shreveport. I was born in Spokane, Washington, went to kindergarten in Ramstein, Germany, went to Little Rock because my dad flew C-130s there, and spent middle school back in Germany. So I had the opportunities of playing with the local German soccer team, which I loved. They're really good at soccer, and they play it like chess, which makes it more of a mental exercise, surprisingly, than a physical exercise. So yeah.
You know, one of my friends is actually from Germany, and he loves soccer, and one of his goals is to be like a semi-professional soccer player. And like, I guess being, you know, in America, we look to, you know, football being the thing or baseball, but man, soccer is just out there as a different sport.
And even, I looked it up because I was interested one time, even like third tier athletes or third tier professionals get paid around like $200,000. And that's like not even the top of the top, which makes sense because they're athletes and they're in high demand for the entertainment industry. But like even 4th tier, 5th tier athletes are getting paid quite a bit amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those things where, you know, we tell our kids or our people in high school and college, we're like, oh, I can only make it as a football player if I do this, or as a hockey player if I get to, you know, NHL and like the big leagues. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we forget that there are people who do this, you know, just at a semi-professional level, and I mean, still get to make a living off of it.
Yeah.
But today's topic is not about sports. We can talk about sports if we want. But the reason I brought you onto the show and asked you to be on the show is that, one, I think you were voted to be Student of the Year or in that process.
Yes.
And everyone has just given me rave reviews of, man, this guy's great. He's a great student. Didn't mean to make you blush on the show or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to also ask you questions about, you know, the perspective of being Catholic in high school. You know, when I was in high school, the things that we worried about the most were like homosexuality, and I think the sex scandal had just broke loose when I was in high school. But, you know, as I go through college and as I graduated from college, I mean, it's been about 8 years since I've been in high school.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's a completely different generation of teens in high school. So just to kind of open up the floor, what is it like? I guess where is the church lacking when it comes to Catholic youth in high school?
Whenever it comes to Catholic youth in high school, for me, it would be making Catholicism more of a lifestyle. So students are so used to sitting in classrooms all the time that bringing a speaker there, it's good because you get to hear something new, but it doesn't like pack as big of a punch as providing service opportunities for students or telling kids to go walk the walk and just not listen to the talk, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I love like sitting down going, I want to go, I don't think I haven't been yet, to a talk. Actually, I have. I've been to a talk, I think it was Jesse Romero. Is he a speaker? I think he came to St. Joseph's like a few months ago, and we sat and listened to him. He talked about the power of Mary and the power of the Rosary, and I thought that was great. I loved it. I would want to go see him again and again and again, but I'm not everybody, and I think everybody would definitely like the hands-on rather than the auditory Catholicism.
So sort of like the practical here's how you live the Catholic life
Exactly.
every day.
It helps being taught, okay, how to do that, but where you're going to get the most turnout and the most joy is doing what you've been told to do. And I don't think there are many opportunities for people to do that. Or if there are, we have, for many other reasons, some people that just don't go out and find those.
Did you, I'm not local here, so forgive me if this question's just out of the ordinary, but does your high school like host retreats or give y'all retreat opportunities to go and, grow in your faith?
Yeah, every year we, so I had one as a freshman, didn't have one as a sophomore because of COVID, unfortunately. Had one as a junior, and we had one as a senior, and that happens like October, November, where almost like a class bonding activity for all grade levels. We have priests from the local churches, so there's quite a few Catholic churches in this area, and each of the classes retreats are at a specific parish or at a specific church. So they bring speakers in. They have like a theme of the day. I can't remember what our theme was for this past year, but the most memorable thing was the open mic period where, it was talking about love. I remember because I think it was Father Price. He's a priest at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. He got into the intimate side of love, specifically like relating stories from his parents and stuff, and how we are called to have that intimate kind of love, but not in the physical sense, more in the spiritual sense. So to like pretty much cap off the entire event, we had an open mic where seniors, like we've been with each other for the past 4 years, came onto the mic, most of us in tears because we just wanted to say that we loved each other. And that was a way of like walking the walk, is sharing what you feel on the inside. Like any prejudices or any bad like weeks you had with somebody, that all went away because you were able to step up and tell your neighbor that you love them.
Do you feel as though, because I know for me when I was in high school and even in college, there was sort of that, I guess, retreat high, like for the next couple weeks,
Absolutely.
You're like, wow, like this is great, but then afterwards some people just completely fall back off the wagon. Do you see that happening still? Or?
Not with my class.
Okay.
Especially not with the seniors, because I think, as my government teacher says, senior year is the longest goodbye. Like, it's a year of saying goodbye. So I think everybody in my class understands that we're stepping off of this platform and taking a big jump into the world. So we're kind of like all still huddled together in order to brace ourselves for what comes next. But that doesn't really exist. I don't know why it doesn't exist with the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. I guess it's because they don't have college like 2 months away.
Well, I remember when I was in high school, it's one of those things where really it is, because like you're going off to college, and sometimes your classmates are people you've gone to school with since pre-K. I mean, that was the case for me. Yeah. Granted, I didn't miss any. But when we get back to kind of talking about, walking the walk with Catholicism and not making the Catholic faith just something that appears on Sunday, do you feel as though that, how do I want to word this question? I don't know. That there are a lot of good role models at your school, because, and just groups of people that help you become better Catholic?
I think so. The teachers, especially the two chaplains, Father Jerry Daigle and Father Rennie Johnson, are phenomenal. I think, my sister and I were talking about this in the car this morning because I knew I had this coming up. But we both agreed that having two chaplains on campus literally brought a physical Catholic, a physical element of the faith closer to us. And like a light, it attracted a whole bunch of flies. Not saying that high schoolers are flies, though they can be a little disgusting at sometimes. But yeah, like having those two role models staying on our campus definitely had a positive impact. Teachers, though not all of them are Catholic, they definitely take up the Catholic mission of the school. So though they can't participate fully in Mass, they open classes with prayer. And having that, it's almost like an echo chamber. I've noticed that you hear it everywhere, and for some people it may be forced down their throat if they're not Catholic. But always having that surrounding you definitely does influence you.
Mm-hmm. Do you think for the people that aren't Catholic, is it something that they, and even for those that are Catholic in or wherever in their faith, do you feel as though that sort of echo chamber is good for them? Now that's a bit of a loaded question, I will say.
I think I'm going to try to keep it consistent with walking the walk and talking the talk. So somebody who's sitting down, not being Catholic, and hearing this all the time, hearing the Catholic message, it will get tiring after a while, I'm sure. Like, if you've heard the same thing over and over and over again, you start to sound like a broken record. So somebody hearing something over and over and over again, I can see how, from their perspective, they won't want to hear it anymore, and it will hurt them. Now, making it more of a tangible, physical faith, I think will have a positive effect, because they're not just feeling like they're being interrogated or indoctrinated with something new. They're seeing, hey, this is applicable. It's not just something I have to accept. It's something I can accept and live out.
Well, that was something that we had talked about before in our pre-interview last week when we were discussing what was going to be talked about today. And so we're clearly seeing that, and even my Catholic school, I think Catholic schools do a great job of providing the Catholic faith to all of their students, even those that are not Catholic or are Catholic and needing the education, and just sort of, it's a good fostering place of role models. Mm-hmm. But even sometimes, and especially just in the secular world, it's hard making that exciting.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I think the Catholic Church has definitely picked an interesting battle when making, for high schoolers, making Catholicism just for non-Catholics or those that aren't religious in general, making that kind of lifestyle just as exciting as the party scene, the drug scene, the sex scene. I think it's a very, very difficult battle that the Catholic Church has picked, trying to reel these people in from all the noise that we hear around us. But I think it's a battle that I'm in support of. I think it's worth fighting, for sure.
I guess that leads me into my next question about, the church and social media, because I personally, I think the church is, we're getting better, but we are definitely behind when it comes to the infrastructure, as well as just the technological know-how of here's how we relate to the new people. Kind of back again to the other Protestant churches and non-denominational churches. I mean, I've gone onto their websites to just see how cool they look, so that I can reference myself. Here's how they draw in people, and here's what this looks like. Tell me about that with just the church and social media.
Yeah, I definitely think they're behind the 8 ball when it comes to stuff like that. I don't, and this definitely says something interesting. I don't really follow any, Catholic, just Shreveport Catholic is the only Catholic social media profile that I follow. And I think
Thank you for being a dedicated follower.
Yeah, I think it's been recent too. I think I followed it after Nathan Lorette chose to go to the seminary. I was like, I want to hear things from him. But it's, I think, infrequent definitely infrequent in comparison to those social media profiles that are pumping things out every hour. The news platforms, definitely sports platforms are doing things and I think it's because they're always looking, and they always have stuff to cover. So I think if Catholicism sticks within the classroom, you're not going to see things to report on. So you don't really have food for your fuel that fuels social media. It's all connected. Like, if you keep it in the classroom, you're not walking the walk, and then you can't cover that walk on social media.
Because no one else is walking it.
Exactly. And whenever people aren't seeing that walk and they show up to the ball game being mass, they think it's a letdown because you don't see people on fire and super excited about it. They're just reading books and things like that.
How many of your peers and just other, people around your age do you see on social media that are, actively promoting Christianity in general, as opposed to just anything else that's out there?
From what I've seen, probably 2 people out of the 400, 500 people that I follow and keep up with. One of them is both of them are my religion teachers. One, my freshman theology teacher, and then my junior theology teacher. And junior theology teacher, Mr. Vyatt, he's still at Loyola. He's a phenomenal man. He posts about his family. He posts about saints. He posts about his, I think, bread baking. And he's very into iron skillets. I remember that. And then Coach Vialba, he's the cross-country coach, Mr. Vialba. He definitely is more consistent. I think he's a competitive news outlet, Catholic news outlet, against other platforms, because he does like a Bible verse of the day and he posts that to his story, or he does a saint of the day, or if it's like a special holy day of obligation, he has a little excerpt or background about that. So I appreciate him for that. But those are the 2 that keep up with it.
Why do you think? Why do you think people your age don't do that? Like you had said before, when we talk about, we go on these retreats and we see that, God is the ultimate good.
Why does it fade so quickly?
Why is not only just why doesn't it fade so quickly, but is there some sort of social stigma to, posting things like that, as opposed to, hey, I'm having fun at the rodeo, or whatever?
I think a lot of teens are very scared of being so active in their faith and putting things on their social media, either because they'd be ostracized, like cast aside and said, okay, you're kind of weird because you're following, like you said, it looks almost culty. Like it looks like, so you're following some type of cult. I don't want to be like friends with you. I think a lot of people are fearful of that. I think it's also inconsistent posting something about being Catholic, or hey, I'm like going to see this talk about Mary and the Rosary. Posting something like that would be inconsistent with the other stuff that they're doing. And I think some people, I don't know if they know it, but they don't want to portray their hypocrisy. I know I'm kind of like calling them out on it, but it's like, hey, I just had fun at this party. I can see this red Solo cup. But if you say, hey, I'm going to church on Sundays, you see there's some type of disconnect. And I think a lot of people want to avoid being called out for saying.
Especially when it comes to people and something that you're into as well. And a lot of the times when we talk about the synod, and we talk about these issues as well, a lot of times it kind of comes down to 2 major things that the church is trying to balance from what I've seen. And that is, we want community and we want knowledge, or the truth, I should say, which is a big catch-all word. And, there are going to be people who go on YouTube, go on social media, who look for, in my opinion, one of those 2 things. They're looking for people who are like them, or they're trying to learn as well. And I think, like you just said, something like this really does help out because, my generation is similar to yours. We grew up with, phones in our hands, which was like the first time ever. And I still remember computers that looked like giant cubes. I may sound super old to you
No,
now.
not at all.
Thank you for complimenting me. But it's one of those things that I think you're right. People are scared to kind of tarnish their image sometimes. And there's a lot of fear and anxiety, especially coming from a high school and even a little bit into college as well, of how are people going to perceive me? Mm-hmm. And, if I'm that person posting about religion, if I'm that person posting about how Jesus loves you, I mean, even saying that on social media gives off some sort of connotation, good or bad, and so do you think that is relevant for, kids in your age group?
I definitely think so. I think people don't want to miss anything, and they want to be seen as everything. So there's something, I don't know if you know what FOMO means, fear of missing out, FOMO. But that is definitely a stigma, and
you make it out like I grew up in the 70s.
Okay. I guess I compliment you, and then I subtly insult
Look, just
you.
because I have gray hair in my beard doesn't mean I'm old. Okay, go ahead, keep going.
But I definitely think that's something. They don't want to miss anything, and there happens to be more things that aren't in line with the Catholic faith, just the Christian lifestyle, that they wouldn't want to miss out on than what the Catholic or Christian faith is providing.
Because I know on TikTok, I'm late to the game on TikTok, which is going to date me.
I don't even have TikTok. So,
really?
Yeah.
What do you?
The only thing I have is Instagram, because my parents were like, you don't really need that stuff. And I've deleted it 5 or 6 times since. But there's always something I want to keep up with friends overseas. And there's usually transaction fees for texting them. So I have to have Instagram because that's what everybody's on.
Shoot, I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess before I get into one of the other questions, what are high schoolers on nowadays in terms of social media?
I think Snapchat is the most prevalent. Unfortunately, kids at Loyola definitely are on Snapchat a lot of the time, in class, because Loyola promotes its 1-to-1 iPad ratio, so every teacher has an iPad, every student has an iPad, but because you have access to an iPad, you have access to the App Store. And so a lot of kids, I guess there's red dots or red squares that say you have a new Snap, and that's almost like feeling like you have to answer a text message. I think the guy Simon Sinek, do you know who he is? Yeah, he gave a talk on it actually has some chemical effect, some psychological effect, where you hear a text message and then immediately you get distracted or you feel like you have to answer that. That is exacerbated by Snapchat. It makes it 10 times worse.
Do you think that kind of goes back to that whole FOMO situation where here's this thing that I got and now I need to be part of it?
Yeah, and people want to feel important. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. They want to be seen as everything. So just the fact that you're taking a picture, even if I know a bunch of kids are they take a picture of their face and send it to their friends, and then their friends just tap it and then take a picture of themselves. I think that's very interesting, because you have somebody taking a picture of their face and you have somebody else interacting with it. They're not necessarily seeing it, but the person who took the picture doesn't know that. So they took the picture, they send it, and they say, oh, this person paid attention to my face. They're paying attention to me.
But then you do the same thing back.
Exactly. So there's a disconnect, but at the same time, you feel like you're connecting with that person.
Right.
It's a weird
and it's weird because social media as a whole is just so entirely weird because, for thousands upon thousands of years, we've never had computers. I mean, we've never had phones before, and, you had to talk to people one-on-one. And, having social media with all of this connectiveness, I think that definitely has some sort of psychological effect on us, good or bad, and definitely changes the way that we communicate with one another digitally as well as in person. and so we talk about all of this, especially with, can I call y'all kids? Like, what is
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
I'm not
mean
18 yet, so I'm still legally a kid.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, I'm a kid.
Yeah, okay, so I just, whatever. But I think, a lot of young Catholics on TikTok, that was what I was trying to get to before. On TikTok, most of the people that have the most likes or the most views are usually like meme channels or like just some personality, or like it's a dance TikTok or something trendy. But then when you get into Christian TikTok, the most I've ever seen is like 1,000 likes, which is incredibly low by TikTok standards. And so we're seeing this, like, I guess kind of going in line with what you had said before, that there are these, I may be Catholic myself, but I don't want to say anything about the Catholic Church because I may get harassed, or I may not get as many views or connections, right? But do you think in order to, I guess, raise awareness of the church and just bring in, I guess some sort of evangelization, that you have to be saying like, here's this Bible verse, or here's the saint of the day, or is it more about walking the walk?
Yeah, I think it's about walking the walk, sometimes stirring things up. Like if you just post something like a question, and start a conversation in the comments section and things get heated, that can sometimes be a good thing, because people want to understand. They want to know why somebody else thinks that way, even if they don't necessarily agree with them. And that prompts people to dig more deeply into the faith. Walking the walk in another way could be posting images of saints and martyrs and things, and almost shocking and awing people into being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you've done this. Why? And then that stirs up conversation. So I think there is a way to be connected through social media, but walking the walk is also more important.
Well, I guess as an overall question, and this is one of my last questions as well, what can the church do to reach out to young Catholics specifically when it comes to all of this? Because we definitely identified a problem that, in Catholic schools at least, there's a lot of good role models, there's a lot of good religion, but again, there's not that, want to live the Catholic faith 24/7. It's more like on at school and on at church, but kind of off elsewhere with parties and dance and everything. And then, especially when we get to social media, that there isn't a whole lot of Catholic presence or even Christian presence.
Yeah.
What can the church do to help?
There's a lot of ways I could answer it. One way is have, I would say, more priests, more religious interacting with youth. So like Father Rainey, he's been recently ordained a priest, but I feel at Loyola there's definitely a connection between us and him because there's such very little age difference. So I think we see the world in his eyes and he sees the world a little bit more in our eyes. That's one way they can help people walk the walk. Another way is walking the walk themselves. I know those public speakers, they do a great job public speaking, but is that public speaking just their profession? Is that public speaking just public speaking, or the people that they meet, like, are they carrying that not scripted? And I think it's also very difficult because you have a lot of people, very, very good people that are walking the walk. They're living the Catholic faith, but they understand that you don't walk the walk to advertise that you're walking the walk, right? If you do it as like a publicity stunt, then you're a hypocrite. You're doing things that you say you're not doing, or you're doing it for the wrong reasons. So there is a challenge when it comes to how you advertise walking the walk, because I think Catholicism is the behind-the-scenes love, the behind-the-scenes mercy and forgiveness and kindness that you're supposed to show to individuals. So the truth is, I think it's above my pay grade to, like, know all of the intricacies of that, but I think I can say what I think, and that will definitely influence their response.
Sure. And I think definitely that, again, we should probably just title this "Walking the Walk" for Catholic youth. Because
I hope I didn't like slap a band on it, like a sticker or something.
Yeah.
Walk the walk.
You're gonna get to Georgia Tech, and that's gonna.
You're the walk guy. No way.
You're the walk man. But yeah, no, I think that's definitely prevalent, because something that I remember when I used to work in college recruiting, and we were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a whole, we were taught that people your age want more authenticity, in whatever they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that sort of right?
What do you mean, like, authenticity? Can you give me an
Well, so
example?
like, for example, you'd come to our college, and instead of just kind of going back to that speaker,
Mm-hmm.
right, who is just like talking about the Catholic faith and this is what I believe.
Yeah.
But you also want to make sure that they're not lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is someone who not only is talking about their faith, but is someone who is actually walking their faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the thing with the college recruiting spiel, was that we would have people who come onto campus, and it's not about selling it, but it's about being it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think people definitely want to see that, to know that what they're being told is something. So if I'm telling some people that, they want to know that I can do it too. That was one of the like mottos of the Mr. Coach Vialba, my cross country coach. He said, "I will never assign you guys a workout that I won't be able to complete myself." And I think that definitely developed trust between the runner and the coach. And I think seeing that, like, I remember I have a photo saved on my iPad of he had to leave. His son felt sick, I think, or he had to go to a doctor's appointment or something, but he took time out of his day to do the workout before leaving on the doctor's appointment. And like, I get this notification on like the cross country group me, and it's him. He had a mustache, and he was like looking at the camera, and he was pointing and pretty much saying, "I did this, you can do it too." And that's the perfect example of, we want to see that. Like, we want to see the proof that, okay, this person did it too.
I think that's a perfect example,
Yeah.
because that's something that when you get to college, no matter what your background is, you're going to be tested in whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And when people give you such high expectations from speakers or whatever, not saying speakers of any kind are bad, but you're like, wow, this is like he ate, 6 eggs a day and like ate, an acre's worth of spinach a day,
Yeah.
and look at him, he looks great. And you're just like, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because it's so tough.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right with that people want to see how it's done.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my mom and I recently toured Georgia Tech. I got to say mass there at the Catholic Center, and I thought, priest, I've already told you before, like, we got on camera, he was phenomenal. I loved him. And what kind of put like a smile on my face at the end was the power was out, like, in half of the building. So you had like let's say the chapel was in the shape of like a baseball field. So like along first base, and all those lights along there were out. The roof was peeling a little bit, but it was a beautiful chapel. The priest at the end, he got up to the ambo and he said, "If anybody knows what's going on with the power, please let me know. Anybody who's in a fraternity, if you guys are out of power too, let me know." because I need to know if it's just like the church thing or if you guys are dealing with it too. And I thought, holy cow, he's putting himself in the shoes. He's like literally in the same experience, in the same boat as a lot of the college students. So I think he kind of, I don't think he definitely didn't intend it, but by putting himself as the victim of being out of power in his home, he was connecting the frat houses with the church.
Yeah.
Can you see that? Did I like elaborate on that well enough?
That makes sense to me. Is there's a I don't know if you've ever heard of Exodus 90.
I literally heard that term like.
So basically,
2 days
it's an extreme form of Lent for guys.
Mm-hmm.
It goes 90 days, hence Exodus 90.
Okay, yeah.
And it ends on Easter.
Yeah.
So I think you start like at the beginning of the year, and one of the things that brings in that walking of the walk is joint suffering.
Okay.
Like, oh, you don't have a place, like your bed is like filled with termites, I'm going to go sleep on the couch as well, or sleep on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows kind of like, we're both in this together.
Mm-hmm.
But one last thing on that, I guess not only joint suffering, but also kind of like, how do I do the thing, right? My priest back in college loved him so much. He used to be an Army Ranger. And man, I mean, he would destroy you at racquetball. But he even had knee surgery too.
Oh, wow.
And so he would always get up and do a walk 3 miles, I think, and pray the rosary at 5 a.m. And he'd always extend that offer to us college kids. Sure, 1 or 2 of us would take him up on that offer.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until like senior year that all of us just started going.
Yeah.
And it was because you could see it that other people were doing it, and that like this isn't some sort of foreign thing.
Yeah.
And so I think to, I guess, wrap up and kind of encapsulate what we've been talking about, people want to see how to walk the walk. And when we start showing people how we can walk the walk, we start doing it all together, and that builds that community as well.
Yeah. Like Dead Poet Society.
Mm-hmm.
That one scene where they're all walking in the courtyard, they all start off on their own paths, but they don't stop walking because they're not synchronized. They keep walking, and eventually they're just like one moving mass. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if that wants to like put some imagery to it, that's it.
I need to go watch that movie again. But is there anything else that you want to say?
Love your faith. Because if you don't, I guess you don't really know what you're doing here.
If you don't know how to love your faith, reach out to someone.
Yeah.
So, cool. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you.